Here is a hard truth that is going to make the tackle companies furious. You are spending way too much money on beautiful, shiny, flawless fishing lures. Have you ever noticed that the guys catching the biggest fish usually have the ugliest, most beaten-up gear? Today, we are going to talk about why that horrifying, tooth-scarred, rusty-hooked lure sitting in the dark corner of your tackle box is the only one the fish actually want to eat. I promise you, by the end of this video, you are going to stop buying pristine plastics and start digging through your grandpa's old rusty tackle. You might even want to take some sandpaper to your brand new crankbaits. So let me ask you a question. Are you brave enough to tie on the ugliest piece of junk you own, or are you too worried about looking good on the boat? Let us get into it. To understand why this happens, we have to look at the massive trap that every single angler falls into. When you walk into a tackle shop, the walls are lined with neon colors, holographic foil, and perfect airbrushed scales. These lures are not designed to catch fish, they are designed to catch you, the fisherman. We naturally buy things that look appealing to the human eye. We have been brainwashed for decades to believe that if a bait does not look exactly like a pristine, healthy baitfish, the predators will simply ignore it. We do the same thing year after year. We lose a lure, we buy a shiny new replacement, and we complain when the fish stop biting. But fish do not shop at sporting goods stores. They live in a dark, dirty, chaotic environment where perfection is actually a massive red flag. It is time to leave those shiny habits behind. Picture this. It is early morning on your favorite lake. The fog is just lifting off the glass-like surface of the water. You open up your brand new tackle box and it looks like a high-end jewelry store. Everything is perfectly organized by color, size, and running depth. You reach for a brand new $20 jerkbait you just bought last week. The paint job is absolutely flawless. The holographic finish catches the early morning sunlight perfectly. The treble hooks are razor-sharp and gleaming silver. You tie it on with absolute confidence, feeling like a true professional. You make that first, long, beautiful cast toward a submerged, fallen tree. It lands with a soft splash. You twitch it, you pause it, you work it exactly how the pros on television tell you to. You work that entire bank for over an hour. Then 2 hours pass. Nothing happens, not even a single follower. You start to question everything. You blame the weather. You blame the barometric pressure. You think maybe the water is too cold, but the truth is much simpler. Your lure is just too perfect. It looks completely unnatural. Out there in the wild, survival is violent. Real baitfish are not flawless. A perfectly painted piece of plastic, swimming with mechanical precision, sets off warning bells for older, smarter fish. Let us talk about the science of scars and scratched paint. When you take a brand new lure out of the plastic package, it usually has a smooth, glossy, clear coat over the paint. In clear water on a sunny day, that gloss acts like a mirror. It reflects light in a solid, blinding flash. While some flash is good, a massive, unbroken reflection of sunlight is incredibly unnatural underwater. Real fish scales do not reflect light like a solid sheet of glass. They scatter the light. Now look at a lure that has caught 50 fish. The clear coat is gone. The paint is deeply scratched by teeth, rocks, and gravel. Those hundreds of tiny gouges and scrapes actually diffuse the sunlight. When that beaten-up lure rolls in the water, the light bounces off it in a scattered, chaotic pattern that perfectly mimics the random sparkle of real, living fish scales. You cannot buy that finish in a store. It has to be earned through hours of grinding against the bottom and getting chewed on by predators. That ugly, matte, scratched-up finish is scientifically more realistic to a fish than the glossy new toy you just bought. There is a massive myth passed down from older generations of fishermen that you have to perfectly match the hatch. Grandpa always said that if the bass are eating small bluegill, your lure better look exactly like a small bluegill, right down to the tiny fins and perfect stripes. But predators are not art critics roaming the water looking for a masterpiece. They are biological machines driven by instinct and hunger. When a largemouth bass or a northern pike decides to strike, it happens in a fraction of a second. They are looking for specific trigger points, not a perfect painting. They look for contrast, erratic movement, and signs of vulnerability. An ugly lure that is missing half its paint provides incredible contrast. A dark, bare plastic spot next to a patch of bright, original color creates a broken silhouette. In murky water or low light conditions, that broken, messy silhouette is actually easier for a predator to lock onto than a flawlessly blended, realistic paint job. They just see a shape that looks like food, and they destroy it. Now, let us discuss the action of the lure. Factory-tuned lures are designed to swim with a perfect rhythmic wobble. Left, right, perfectly balanced every single time. That is great for catching aggressive, actively feeding fish in optimal conditions. But what happens when the bite gets tough? An ugly, abused lure does not swim perfectly anymore. Maybe you slapped it against a bridge piling to clear some weeds off, and you slightly bent the line tie. Maybe the plastic diving lip has a chip taken out of the left side from hitting a boulder. Because of this damage, that lure now has a flaw in its swimming action. It wobbles fine for 3 seconds and then suddenly darts wildly to one side before recovering. To a human, it looks broken. To a massive predator, that sudden, erratic darting motion looks exactly like a baitfish that is injured, panicking, and losing its strength. That unpredictable mistake in the action is the ultimate strike trigger. You cannot manufacture that perfectly imperfect action. It only happens when a lure gets properly abused. The confidence factor plays a huge role in why your ugly lures catch more fish. Think about how you fish with a brand new, expensive lure. You are careful. You cast it near the heavy cover, but you keep a safe distance because you do not want to get snagged and lose $20. You play it safe. But big fish do not live in the safe zones. They live deep inside the nasty, tangled brush piles, thick weed beds, and jagged rocks. Now think about how you fish with a lure that looks like it was run over by a truck. You do not care if you lose it. It is already ugly. Because you are not afraid to lose it, you cast it directly into the heart of the most dangerous cover. You bounce it aggressively off the stumps. You rip it violently through the grass. You put that lure right in front of the nose of the biggest, laziest fish in the lake. The ugly lure catches more fish simply because you are brave enough to throw it where the fish actually live. Your lack of fear translates into a much more effective presentation. Have you ever been stuck in the middle of a massive midday slump? It is 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun is beating down directly overhead, making the water extremely bright. The wind has completely died and the surface is flat. The morning bite is long gone and the fish have retreated to the shadows. You and everyone else on the lake are throwing shiny, bright new plastics, hoping to wake them up. You are burning spinnerbaits and working flashy topwaters, but the lake feels completely dead. This is the exact moment you need to dig to the very bottom of your tackle box. You bypass all the pretty stuff and pull out a crankbait that is missing one eye, has zero paint left on its sides, and has rusted split rings. You tie it on, cast it out, and slowly grind it through the darkest shadows. Bam! Suddenly your rod is doubled over. Why? Because in those highly pressured, high-visibility conditions, a dull, muted, ugly bait does not intimidate the fish. It looks like an easy, unthreatening meal, slowly dying in the heat, rather than a loud, obnoxious piece of flashing metal. We need to talk about the visual profile of a survivor. In the underwater kingdom, predators are constantly looking for the weakest link. A baitfish that is swimming perfectly upright, with all its scales intact, is a healthy fish. A healthy fish is hard to catch. It requires a lot of energy to chase down. Predators are inherently lazy. They want maximum calories for minimal effort. When a predator sees your heavily scarred, ugly lure, it reads a story. That missing eye and those deep teeth marks tell the predator that this specific baitfish has been attacked before and barely survived. It is already wounded. It is compromised. To a big bass or walleye, that ugly lure looks like a guaranteed easy meal that will not be able to swim away fast enough. You are intentionally presenting the illusion of weakness. A pristine lure looks like a marathon runner. Your beaten-up lure looks like someone limping on crutches. Which one do you think a hungry, opportunistic predator is going to target first? Let us break down the acoustic signature of a damaged bait. Sound and vibration are incredibly important underwater, often more important than sight. Factory-new crankbaits have plastic chambers inside with metal BBs that create a very specific, high-pitched rattling sound. It is a clean, sharp acoustic signature. But as a lure gets older and takes a beating, things change. Microscopic cracks form in the plastic shell. A tiny amount of water might seep into the rattle chamber. The metal BBs start to oxidize and rust. The split rings get loose and sloppy. All of this wear and tear completely changes the sound the lure makes. Instead of a sharp, high-pitched rattle, it becomes a dull, muted thud. The loose metal hardware creates a unique clacking noise that no new lure can replicate. On lakes where fish hear the exact same factory rattles from 1,000 different fishermen every single weekend, that weird, clunky, muted sound of an old, ugly lure stands out. It sounds different, so they investigate it and eat it. Fishing pressure is the silent killer of good days on the water. On popular public lakes, the fish receive a masterclass in lure identification every single day. They see the entire catalogue of brand new lures swim past their faces from sunrise to sunset. They learn to associate that perfect neon green paint job and that flawless wobble with the painful experience of being hooked and dragged into a boat. They become incredibly smart and highly suspicious. This is where the ugly lure becomes your greatest weapon. Because it is completely trashed, its color has faded into a weird, unrecognizable brownish gray. Because the lip is chipped, it swims a little crooked. It does not look or sound like anything they have been conditioned to fear. It completely bypasses their learned defense mechanisms. They look at it, they cannot identify it as a threat from their previous encounters, and their natural predatory instinct takes over. You are tricking their memory by throwing something they have never seen before. There is a massive misconception about hook sharpness and rust. Every fishing magazine tells you that if your hooks are not shiny and sticky sharp, you are going to lose fish. While having sharp points is undeniably important for penetrating a tough jaw, the appearance of the hook is a different story. Brand new, shiny silver or brilliant red treble hooks stand out clearly against the belly of a lure. In clear water, a smart fish can see those unnatural metal appendages hanging down. But what happens when you leave a lure in a wet tackle box for a few weeks? The hooks develop a dull, dark coating of surface rust. Many guys will throw those hooks in the trash immediately, but that dull brown rust actually acts as perfect natural camouflage. It stops the hooks from reflecting light. Against the murky green or brown background of the water, a rusted hook virtually disappears. As long as you take a file and touch up the very tips so they are sharp, those ugly rusted hooks will actually get you more bites than shiny new ones. Let us look at the famous missing eye phenomenon. Almost every angler has a story about a lure that was completely mediocre until the day one of its three-dimensional sticker eyes fell off. Suddenly, that one-eyed bait became an absolute fish-catching machine. This is not just a funny coincidence. It is rooted in how predators target their prey. Many predatory fish aim for the eye of the baitfish. It is a high-contrast target area that helps them determine which direction the prey is moving, ensuring they swallow it head first. When a lure has only one eye, the visual symmetry is completely broken. As the lure wobbles back and forth, the predator sees an eye, then a blank space, then an eye, then a blank space. This creates an incredibly disorienting, strobing effect. It confuses the predator just enough to trigger a pure reaction strike. They hit it out of aggression and confusion. That lopsided, ugly face turns a piece of plastic into an irresistible target. Water displacement is a concept that separates the amateurs from the pros. Fish have a lateral line running down their bodies that detects tiny changes in water pressure and movement. A perfectly smooth, new lure displaces water in a very predictable, aerodynamic way. It glides through the water cleanly. Now take an ugly lure. The paint is flaking off, leaving rough, uneven edges. There are deep teeth gouges in the plastic. The diving bill has rough, scraped edges from grinding against rocks. All of these physical imperfections create tiny points of turbulence. As the lure moves, those rough spots grab and tear the water, leaving a chaotic trail of micro-bubbles and erratic pressure waves behind it. A fish feeling that pressure wave with its lateral line senses a struggle. It feels like a creature that is swimming with great difficulty, pushing water awkwardly. That chaotic water displacement screams vulnerability into the dark water, calling fish from long distances. Imagine a late afternoon scenario on the water. A huge summer thunderstorm has just rolled through. The rain has stopped, but the sky is totally overcast, and the water has been churned up, turning a muddy brown color. You only have an hour of daylight left, and you are getting desperate. You have been throwing a gorgeous, highly detailed swim bait all day with absolutely no luck. You finally give up on the pretty stuff. You reach into the bottom tray of your box and pull out a massive, ugly, corroded Colorado blade spinnerbait. The skirt is half missing, and the remaining rubber strands are melted together. The blade is tarnished and dull. It is an embarrassment to fishing tackle. You tie it on and cast it into the muddy water. The moment it hits the water, a massive bass absolutely crushes it. Why? Because in that chaotic, muddy environment, fine painted details do not matter at all. The fish needed maximum vibration and a solid, dark silhouette to find the bait in the gloom. Your ugly bait delivered exactly what the conditions demanded. There is an ego trap in modern fishing that prevents people from catching fish. We spend thousands of dollars on high-tech sonar, expensive rods, and premium tackle. When you have $5,000 worth of electronics on your boat, there is a psychological block that makes you want to use the most expensive, beautiful lures to justify the cost of your hobby. It hurts a fisherman's ego to admit that a cheap, beat-up piece of plastic from 20 years ago is outperforming the $50 Japanese import lure they just bought. We want the sport to be clean, technical, and precise, but fishing is fundamentally dirty, unpredictable, and raw. You have to check your ego at the boat ramp. The fish do not care how much money you spent. They do not care about the brand name stamped on the side of the bait. Once you let go of the need to have the prettiest gear on the lake and embrace the ugly, effective tools, your catch rate will immediately go up. We also need to consider the scent and history of an old lure. A brand new lure smells like a factory. It smells like fresh plastic, chemical paint, and industrial solvent. Fish have an incredibly sensitive sense of smell, and those chemical odors can sometimes cause them to turn away at the very last second. But an old, ugly lure carries a rich, natural history. It has been soaked in lake water for years. It has been covered in the slime of dozens of fish you caught previously. The rusted metal hardware gives off a metallic scent that blends into the natural environment. Even if it has been sitting in a box for months, the plastic has absorbed the earthy, organic smells of fishing. When you throw that beaten-up bait into the water, it does not leave a trail of fresh chemicals. It smells like the lake. It smells alive. That natural scent profile can be the deciding factor for a wary fish following your bait. Have you ever considered intentionally making your brand new lures ugly? Some of the best professional tournament anglers in the world do this in secret. They will buy a brand new, beautifully painted crankbait, take it out of the package, and immediately take a piece of rough sandpaper to the sides. They will intentionally dull the shiny clear coat. They will take a knife and scrape off parts of the paint to expose the bone-white plastic underneath. They will even take pliers and slightly bend the eyelet to make the lure hunt left and right unpredictably. They are intentionally fast-forwarding the aging process because they know that perfect lures are less effective. If the guys fishing for hundreds of thousands of dollars are intentionally destroying their perfect paint jobs, it should tell you everything you need to know about the power of an ugly lure. Do not be afraid to customize your gear with a little bit of tactical destruction. There is a deep connection to the past when you use an old, beaten-up lure. Think about that one specific topwater frog or crankbait that you have owned for over a decade. It has survived thousands of casts, hundreds of snags, and countless battles with angry fish. It looks absolutely terrible, but the reason it looks terrible is because it works. It has been tested in the fires of real-world fishing. Every scratch on its surface is a story of a successful catch or a narrow escape from a rock pile. When you tie that lure on, you are fishing with proven history. You are not guessing if the action is good or if the color profile works on your local lake. You already know it does. The sheer fact that a lure has survived long enough to become that ugly is proof of its lethal effectiveness. It is a veteran of the water. You should respect the scars on your lures, not replace them. Let us talk about reading the water instead of reading the lure package. When you buy a perfect new bait, the packaging tells you exactly what to do. It tells you the dive depth, the action, and the specific retrieve speed you must use. You become a robot, just following the instructions. But when you tie on an ugly, modified, or damaged lure, there are no instructions. You have to cast it into the shallow water and watch how it behaves. You have to feel the vibration through your rod tip to understand what it is doing. You adapt to the lure rather than forcing the lure to be perfect. This makes you a much more engaged, observant fisherman. You start paying attention to how the current catches the chipped diving lip, or how the faded colors flash in the sunlight. You become totally dialed into the mechanics of fishing, rather than just mindlessly reeling in a pristine toy. The ugly lure forces you to be a better angler. The transition from clear water to murky water is where the ugly lure truly shines. In gin-clear water, a fish has a lot of time to inspect a bait. While faded colors work well there, in murky, stained water, it is a completely different game. Fish in dirty water rely heavily on bold contrasts and harsh silhouettes. A beautiful, realistic, translucent bait disappears completely in brown water. It blends in too well. But that old, heavily chipped lure with a massive patch of dark plastic exposed against a faded chartreuse back creates a harsh, unnatural contrast. It looks like a bold, blocky shadow moving through the gloom. It is not pretty, but it is highly visible. The very things that make the lure ugly on the deck of your boat are the exact things that make it stand out in terrible underwater visibility. Never throw away a bright lure just because half the paint chipped off. It just became your best dirty water weapon. So, we have reached the final test. The next time you are out on the water and the fishing gets incredibly tough, I want you to resist the urge to tie on your newest, most expensive piece of tackle. I want you to open your box and look for the lure you are most embarrassed by. Find the one with rusty hooks, no eyes, and deeply scratched paint. The one you were planning to throw in the garbage when you got home. Tie that piece of junk onto your line. Make sure the hook points are sharp enough to penetrate, but leave the rest of the bait exactly as ugly as it is. Make a cast into the heaviest cover you can find. Trust the erratic action, trust the scattered light reflection, and trust the chaotic water displacement. Stop worrying about matching the hatch perfectly and start relying on the raw triggers of predatory instinct. You might just catch the biggest fish of your life on a lure you thought was completely worthless. Let us bring it all together. We have broken down the science of light diffusion, the power of erratic action, and the truth about how fish react to fishing pressure. The biggest takeaway here is a complete shift in how you view your tackle. Perfect, shiny lures are designed to catch your wallet at the store, but the ugly, scarred, beaten-up baits are the ones that actually survive the test of the water. The next time you see a lure missing an eye or missing half its paint, do not see it as trash. See it as a highly tuned, custom bait that provides the exact contrast, sound, and unpredictable action needed to trigger a massive strike from a wary giant. Embracing the ugly lure will save you money, give you more confidence in heavy cover, and ultimately put more fish in your boat. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out today. If this video changed how you look at your tackle box, please hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It really helps us out. Now, head down to the comments and tell me, what is the absolute ugliest lure in your tackle box that still catches fish every time you throw it? Let us hear your stories.